Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the City Council, the City of Healdsburg, and the Redevelopment Successor Agency. Let the record show that all council members are pleasant and present. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Are there any changes or additions, deletions to the agenda?
No. Oh, Ms. Mayor, I'd like to call out the, from the consent calendar, item E.
Okay. Discuss that separately.
Is it?
Okay.
So item E has been deleted then on the consent calendar?
No, item E will be discussed separately.
Okay.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the August 7th and the August 21st meetings?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Okay, moving on to item 2, announcements and presentations. I have a proclamation for Pollution Prevention Week. Director Salmi, you want to receive it? I'll just read it off here. This is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Healdsburg declaring September 18th to the 24th, 2017 as Pollution Prevention Week, and September 16th through the 24th, 2017 as Creek Week in the City of Healdsburg. Whereas throughout the United States, the week starting on the third Monday of September is recognized as National Pollution Prevention Week, and throughout much of California, including the Russian River watershed, cities, counties, and other stewardship organizations are recognizing the third week of September as Creek Week. Now, therefore, let it be proclaimed that in the City Council of the City of Healdsburg hereby declares September 28th to the 18th to the 24th, 2017 as Pollution Prevention Week, and September 16th to the 24th as Creek Week in the City of Healdsburg, and asks all of our members of our community to support efforts to protect and enrich our watershed health by participating in the many Pollution Prevention Week, Creek Week activities, and take active steps to reduce pollution and care for our environment throughout the year. And on this note, I know that our Foss Creek cleanup event is coming up real soon. Maybe Director Salmi, you could talk a little bit about that. I think it's on the 23rd, I believe. 24th?
Yeah, the Foss Creek cleanup is the 23rd of September. So hope everybody comes out and enjoys the event and helps to clean up the creek.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Salmi. And that event starts at 8 o'clock at the West Plaza Park, and there's breakfast provided by the Rotary Clubs of Healdsburg, and lunch will be provided at about noon by the Kiwanis Clubs. So that's always a great event. I'm sure I'll see lots of you out there.
Mayor, I just want to add too, there's a Russian River watershed cleanup that's taking place Saturday the 16th of September, and it's from Ukiah to Monterey. It's going to be really cool. You have to register for it, but anyway, it's September 16th Saturday, which I guess is just literally the week before that, 8:30 to 12:30. It's the 30th. I don't know what the 30th means, but anyway, it's worth doing, and I hope that everybody signs up for that one as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, next I have a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Healdsburg declaring September 28th, 2017 as National Bakery Day in the City of Healdsburg. Whereas baking has been an essential element in the development of the human nature since the beginning of history, and baking is a substance of life touching nearly every person on the face of the earth, from major metropolitan areas to the smallest villages in the farthest corners of the world. And whereas in order to accomplish their objectives, bakers use elements of science and art, including chemistry and mathematics, by combining natural ingredients to produce sustenance, the most basic being flour and water for bread. And whereas since the colonial days of the United States, bakers have provided essential provisions in their community, supported civic causes, and have been shapers of cultural standards for gastronomy. And whereas bakers are the cornerstones of their community, celebrating every life milestone by creating fresh, locally baked products for people to enjoy with family and friends. And whereas the establishment of Thursday, September 28th, 2017 as National Bakery Day is a fitting tribute to all bakers, now therefore let it be proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Healdsburg hereby declares September 28th, 2017 as National Bakery Day in the City of Healdsburg. And I see a baker out there ready to receive this proclamation.
Appreciate it greatly. Sure. Stay tuned. The 28th, there will be more details to come. I'd be happy to inform you about them if I knew them. But more will be coming between the various bakeries that serve the community here in Healdsburg. So we anticipate having a number of activities for the community to engage in and make their way around town, getting their fill of carbohydrates. So thank you very much.
Will, is this the first National Bakery Day? Excellent. Thank you. Okay, next we'll move on to council reports of matters of interest occurring since the previous regular meeting. Councilmember Gold, you'd like to start it off?
I don't have anything. I went on holiday.
Oh, very good. Councilmember Higley?
Thank you. I have a couple of things. On the 23rd and 24th of August, I headed up to Roseville for the NCPA meeting for both the LNR and then the commission meeting, and I'm pleased to announce that I was appointed the chair of the finance committee for NCPA. And for the city of Healdsburg, what that really does is gives the little cities, you know, because we're on NCPA with Palo Alto, Santa Clara, some pretty large cities that definitely have maybe a different agenda than we might. So it gives us a little bit of a voice at the table. And so anyway, I was happy that I was able to get that opportunity on behalf of Healdsburg. On the 25th, I attended the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Latina, and I don't speak Spanish. Yeah, they were honoring Latina leaders, and it was pretty inspiring. They had a lot of business leaders from all over the state of California. This California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, this was their annual convention. It was the first time they did it, and they considered a smaller city, which was Santa Rosa, Sonoma County, Rohnert Park, and it was very inspirational going to that. Then on the 30th, had the opportunity to get an update from Replay Resorts on what they're looking at doing and kind of how things are changing, improving, discussions about affordable housing and that sort of thing. And then this week, I head to the Western States Commercial Real Estate Finance Conference, where I have a couple appointments set up to discuss affordable housing with some of the national lenders and try to find out what are the issues, especially relating to financing low-income housing and affordable housing, where, you know, the cities are the partners. And one of the issues is that a lot of times it's hard to get a commitment early. You've got to, you know, wait and do all this stuff, and it's a year later before you get that commitment, which is hard for a city to count on, and it's hard for a developer to count on. So I want to find out what are the issues so that we can get that commitment up closer, so that it's maybe subject to some certain due diligence things, and then reach back through the government points that we have access to and see if we can get some tweaks to some of the guidelines. So, and then the final thing I wanted to, if it's okay with the other council members, I'd like to agendize an update from the CHC with the status of where things are on the work plan. And then one of the thoughts that I've had, and this really goes back to listening to the presentation that we all went to from Comstock, is there are a lot of programs that are focused on future development. We need to get 30 new homes, and then we can get something small, you know, that we get some affordable housing. So I'm wondering, is there a way that we can take some of these concepts and apply it to existing housing stock? So I'd like to have a discussion that covers a number of different topics, but maybe it includes incentives for sellers to choose local buyers, not necessarily local, but people that are going to live in homes. Look at incentives to help that process. And then finally, maybe we can help the city hit the targets that were in the housing action plan with regard to deed restricted housing, but instead of waiting for new stuff to be built.
Yeah, so I think, thank you for that. So I think Councilmember Higley would like a city manager update potentially on the CHC's work plan, as well as a discussion on said work plan.
Sure. I think the intent was the CHC, I think, has their next meeting on the 11th, and they're just starting to get into the housing action plan discussion. So I believe by November, somewhere in that time frame, we should have more to update the council on. I think that would be an appropriate time to further this discussion with regards to affordable housing options, and the council may at that time wish to continue the conversation about updating the CHC's Community Housing Committee's work plan at that point, if appropriate.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm basically looking to have a robust discussion here to kind of fine tune what we're going to push down to the CHC to kind of fine tune and discuss and vet.
Okay.
So
Is that something you'd like to have? Well, good. Excellent.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Neokis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I've got quite a few. Well, first of all, I guess I'll start with other stuff, then I'll leave with SMART, and then you can pick off from SMART. So I attended Los 100 event in Santa Rosa, where I met, among other things, the Mexican Consul General, and extended the invitation to him to come up to Healdsburg for some, they intend to have some Mexican cultural events coming up. So I extended the invitation to him to come and join us for those events. So that was one activity. Also attended the Chamber of Commerce mixer at Dominic Fopoli's winery. I was joined all the other Windsor Council members, but I was fortunately represented Healdsburg. Also attended the Health Action. I'm looking forward to updating you and passing the baton. And there'll be a presentation forthcoming about that, about their the framework and what it means for us as a council and a city. In the meantime, an idea was floated as a way for councils to take specific actions, and one of those actions was to support a greater adoption of blood pressure screening as a real simple, cheap, and effective way to nip problems of health disease in the bud. And so one of the practical thoughts that was offered was that we have a blood pressure screening before one of our council meetings, maybe like half hour or so before. Just have it, it's all there. We all get our blood pressure taken. We know our numbers.
Yeah, or after the meeting.
Yeah, right. Well, of course, the joke is like, well, let's do it. Let's do a trend and see what happens over the year, right? Anyway, so I'd like to invite us to work that in our schedule if that's acceptable to y'all. Okay, so we can work something out with that. I also attended a peace rally here down at the plaza, and I spoke to the crowd. Among other things, I talked about the importance of the need for dialogue. And the challenge as a city, what can a city really do, right? In this regard, right? Especially, well, let me back up. You might have seen that there was sometimes we think about Healdsburg as being not a place where racism happens, where racism doesn't really exist, and where we don't have those. It happens over there, never here. I don't know if you noticed, but there was an incident of a racial, epithet being spray painted on someone's property. So it does happen here, and I think that as a city, there are things that we can do to help the health of a community. One of the things, it's obvious thing, is we have facilities like playing fields that helps to encourage health, like physical health in the community. We also have other facilities like meeting rooms, conference rooms, places where people can gather and talk and exchange ideas and communicate. And I think that dialogue is super important in these challenging times of discord. And I think that would be useful for the city to look at that, at ways we can use those facilities to help that dialogue. I learned in discussion with the city manager that about 6 years ago, we actually had a program where we helped to defray the costs of renting meeting rooms by setting aside a fund that could be dipped into by local nonprofits to use those meeting facilities. And I'd like to ask you, I'd like to agendize a discussion of how that funding mechanism can be restored sooner rather than later. If that's
Yeah, I think that sounds good. It's
Yeah, so
figure something out.
the
Work with
items,
staff.
the item is established, or the project, if you will, is already established. So really, the discussion would come into a funding mechanism, reviewing the programming, a funding mechanism, and that should be relatively easy to bring forward. Relatively soon.
And does that generalize to other city facilities in addition to meeting rooms?
It's specific, I believe, to the community center and maybe the senior center. I have to go back and take a look, but it'll be an opportunity to broaden that if it's the council as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
sounds great.
thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
And then final topic. I hope I'm not. Oh, good. Nobody's been.
Yeah, I'm
tracking
not running the timer. Look at you.
Yeah, right. Council Vice Mayor Menzel and I went to Sacramento to advocate for funding for SMART. We went with Farhad Mansourian, Deborah Fudge, Carol Russell, and along with some other SMART staff. And it was really. I'll let Council our thank you, colleague. Talk a little bit more, but there are a few points I wanted to point out. First of all, it was very impressive. The reception of the SMART program was very impressive. Was highly respectful of what's been accomplished. Specifically considering it's 80% funded with local sources. I mean, that's like, some people were talking about being self-help, like 55, 60%. We're 80%. So that's a very strong statement for the self-sufficiency of this program. Combined with the fact that it started from zero, from nothing, from absolutely no agency or nothing, to a full-fledged operating system with 34 stops in 9 years, or 34 trips in 9 years. It was just it's really astounding, and what that represents is a really healthy and respectable momentum that can have some very serious clout when it comes to fighting for money. And the other point is, we're not asking for a lot of money. It's 250 million. It's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot. So I think the point is that we have to be thinking in terms of, as a council, not if the train will come, but when the train will come. There are some very practical examples, one of which is to make sure that properties contracts will acknowledge the fact that there's an active railroad in their backyard. I'm looking specifically at the Replay Resort, at the Replay project, right? The New Forest project, making sure that those stipulations are there so that we don't, down the road, those property owners don't turn around and say, well, you never told us about there's this train that's running past now all of a sudden. So it's very practical. But also, as another practical matter, we need, as electeds, need to make sure that we voice our support. And I think that there's been kind of a pessimistic attitude among us, and that hasn't resulted in a lot of action. So I think it's important that we as electeds make that statement that yes, we do support it, and yes, we do want it. And I'm looking forward to, personally looking forward to seeing several meals of crow being eaten. People were saying, in particular, a meal of train. I think someone has said something about wanting to eat a train when and if it ever comes. So I'm looking forward to that moment, and that's all I have.
Thanks, Vice Mayor Menzel.
Well, I've worked for Kentucky Fried Chicken in high school in Merced, California, off Highway 99, and I'm just going to say crispy or regular on that crow. What do you want? We didn't have barbecue. So, yeah, I was on the train, and I just want you to know that it was really a last-minute decision that we were invited to go to Sacramento to lobby. What was great was my colleague, Councilman Nyokas, decided to join, and I was really happy because they were happy we were there. And what happened was there was an assemblyman from Merced. His name is Adam Gray. And he held an open forum, essentially just trying to understand rail projects. And with Senate Bill 1, and also with cap and trade monies, there is, in fact, money. So the whole idea that there isn't money, there's definitely money for rail. And so what I really appreciated, and I wanted to upload some pictures because I think seeing is believing, and I think that it's really important for us to acknowledge that a train goes through this town up north to Cloverdale, and as you said so enthusiastically, I think we have a responsibility as electeds to really support this notion that we could actually get light rail all the way past that point where we're starting, which is South Windsor or Airport. If you haven't been on the train, I highly recommend you get on the train and you experience it to San Rafael. But we did go to Sacramento, and Sacramento is just so exciting. I was outside the Capitol before we went into the Assembly hearing at 2:30 on last Wednesday, and there's such excitement right now, and it gets me thinking about this peace rally that we had and that I attended as an observer. I didn't speak, but I feel really moved to bring up and combine it to the train, to get on this train, the peace train, that we're dealing with an issue right now in our community, not just with our own community of Healdsburg, but we have to speak up and speak out. And this article that was in our local paper, Rally for Peace, No Hate in Healdsburg, I think it really alludes to where we're headed later by hearing about an organization that's decided to take some steps, Corazon, and really appreciate that. As a person that attended the rally, I just want to make sure you understand, I think that that square is so important right now. And when I was at the Capitol, if I can go back to Sacramento, and I saw people standing up and holding up signs about parks and how important it is for the people's parks. It's about the people. And I think that our square, it really is a town square. I think it really is the place where we congregate and create community, whether we're dancing. I mean, of course we have guests there, but it's our square. And I really believe more than ever, the culture of this community demands that I think our culture demands that we look at where we get together and connect. I also attended some other things in Sacramento that the people didn't know I attended, but I walked around and I listened, and there's a lot of men, white men in suits. And I think it's interesting because I just want to make sure we are understanding that we have a responsibility at the local level to speak up about what's happening with DACA and what's happening with the DREAM Act. I have 7 students in my class load in Santa Rosa that are undocumented. And with what's happening nationally, I know this is a city council. It's not supposed to be political, but I teach writing and it's political, okay? Just the act of teaching writing is political. How can I not want to say today that this council has a responsibility to pay attention to what happens nationally with our dreamers, those kids that have no way of knowing what they're supposed to do if they end up getting some national order against them and ask people to go back to somewhere they never went to as a child. They never knew it. So there's a lot of mixed metaphors here. I guess I want to talk about the train and how much we need to believe in it. But also we as a responsibility, I think, have to really keep embracing the responsibility of our town with all the money we have and all the affluence, that we really take advantage of this time and we speak up and we really go beyond just one time, but we speak it every day. And I just was very excited by the movement to get on that train. And actually we rode the train down to Sacramento, or to Petaluma. And then we went in the carpool ride with the chief of police from SMART, an amazing woman who's decided to take that job on. And bottom line is, it's really cool, but more than cool, you need to really believe in it. And you have to believe in getting on this train and really believing that we're going to see it all the way to Cloverdale. The money that you spoke of, when I listened to the different projects, and we had to sit through a lot of listening, and that's okay, just like you are now. It's part of what we do in government, but there are so many other projects that are competing for money, if you will, and we are not asking for that much for the SMART train, and they're really excited about us. Secretary Kelly was at the opening a couple Fridays ago now. The Secretary of Transportation for California is really excited about our program. So I don't think we should be anything but assuming that the train's going to be coming up, even with the railroad bridge. And we'll talk more about that later. But I just want to echo the optimism of my colleague to my right, and also to just share that we have a responsibility to step up and stay present when it comes to national issues around immigration and our workers and people that we consider a part of the fabric of our community, and certainly people we want to support in these times. Thanks. I would like to also ask about showing a video. So this town is in a place where I think everybody recognizes tourism and that one. Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to set it up, as a little context. So I guess I want to move this council to consider showing a video in a work session environment so it's not all pressured out like this is right now. And we actually have a time to watch a video that our citizens put together from a forum that was held at the end of May, and here we are, September 5th. We'd like to hear back from that group, and I would like to agendize that, or I'm asking for support from my council members to create a work session or some kind of a session. Mayor, can you help me with what you thought?
Yeah. I think what you're trying to ask is should we have the discussion about viewing this video at a future meeting at some point? Does that?
Should we have this discussion to view the future? My thing is I really would like it to be in a work session rather than a city council meeting because I really want dialogue from our community.
Well, I think the issue with this is that since viewing the video is an action and that wasn't on the agenda, we can't take action on that. But we can certainly have that discussion, and I think that would that be a discussion that council members want to have about viewing said video at a?
I'm open to it. I think maybe if that's all, then it's fine.
I think I'm just looking for a yes or no answer.
So is it clarifying we're discussing whether or not we're going to show the video?
Right.
At a meeting.
Right.
And
So, Mayor, if I can interject,
Yeah.
I think if we start down this path, what I would recommend is we have a discussion on protocols for showing all of these types of videos at council meetings. I mean, I think some of the challenges where one video may be important to the community to see, there may be other, if we do go down that path, we need to have an opportunity to show other types of videos that may or may not be interesting to this council and the community. So I think what I would prefer, if it pleases the council, is to come back with an item on protocols, which may include this video in question, but really good.
Well, I think it really needs to include this specific video, and also maybe the protocols discussion could be part of that. Is that something you're okay with?
I think
that?
that's kind of where I was going with that.
Okay with that?
So I'm confused. Are we putting on the agenda to discuss protocols or putting on the agenda to watch a specific
Both.
undefined video?
Both.
Both. Okay, so we'll watch the video.
No.
Okay, so the discussion
Discuss.
is protocol.
As part of the protocol discussion, will be determined if we view this video.
Right.
So the issue is that you're setting a precedent that may come back to bite us. Is that
Well, I
the
think that's a
point?
discussion we need to have on that day.
Okay.
I don't think that's a discussion we need to have now.
All right.
So are you okay with
Yes,
it?
I'm fine.
Okay. You okay with it? Okay. I think everybody's okay
yes,
with it.
thank you, Mayor, for helping
Thanks.
me.
Okay, thank you. I have a few things. I want to thank staff for the work done around the Peace Rally. I know that was put in about a week ahead of time, and normally it's about a month for an event on the plaza, and staff did an excellent job coming together. Police department did great too. I wasn't able to attend the event other than drive around the plaza after a Little League game, so and there were still a lot of people there at about 2:45, so it was really nice. Also, I want to thank Vice Mayor Mansell and Councilmember Yonkas for going to the Sacramento for that SMART thing. I was not able to go, and I really appreciate that, and it looks like you got a lot out of it. And I'm heartened to see that the train is coming to town too. And also, I went on a business tour with city manager, Mr. Sept, who was here, Carla Howell, some business owners. We went to about 6 different businesses in town. And this same tour is offered up to everybody. I know Councilmember Hagley's going to be doing it on the 13th, so another council member could potentially go at that time. And then, set it up with Will or Carla or with Maria. Maria's probably the best person to set it up with. That's who set it up for me. And it's just walking around town and, on a Wednesday and having lunch and talking about business in Healdsburg. I thought it was really interesting. My favorite one was going to Noble Folk. That was my favorite stop. But yeah, go check it out. Set it up. It's a really eye-opener. I'd never done anything like that before, and that was great. And I have one thing that I'd like to put on the agenda, if you'd like, and that is a discussion of a winter shelter for our homeless population, a temporary winter shelter for our homeless population. Is that something that you'd like to talk about? Okay, great. That's all I have. So I'd like to move on to city manager reports. Item 4A, introduction of public communication and community outreach coordinator. City Manager McKellian.
Thank you, Mayor McCaffrey. I'm pulling up my notes. Excuse me while I'm shifting over. Here we go. So we just finished the recruitment and are pleased to announce the hiring of Ria Borja. Did I get that? Kind of? Close enough? We're lucky to have Ria. She has a really unique background. She's actually worked for NASA in the Jet Propulsion Laboratory as a media relations person. She's worked at a private university down in Southern California. She also has a wealth of private sector experience. So what was intriguing to staff and to myself was the balance of private sector and an understanding of the public sector, and also working on projects. I think the Mars seems like a pretty big project. So I thought it was interesting to have that varied background and coming to the city and all the things that we need from our outreach coordinator. Ria also lives local. She lives in Windsor with her husband. And I just wanted to introduce you and welcome you to the city of Healdsburg.
So, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council, I am delighted to be here. So we moved from LA about 5 years ago, and we quickly discovered that Healdsburg is a very special place. And, of course, lovely shops, restaurants, but just a very vibrant and growing community. So I'm really happy to be here to work with you to strengthen the ties within the community, but also to improve those ties between the city and the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Ria. Welcome. And I forgot to mention that Ria and Ria attended the business tour with myself, and maybe she would want to go along with other council members if they take such a tour. I don't know, it might be a possibility. And so that was really nice to get to know you as well. Thank you.
So this is a new position. So my question is there access for the public with this? I mean, are you open? Is it appropriate for public to contact you directly, or is it how does this work? Because it's a new job.
Sure, I think anybody who wants to reach out to our community outreach coordinator would be appropriate to just email her. BROJA at.
I ask you to put that on the website so that we have a real clear way of contacting. Public knows. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, item 4B, Corazon Healdsburg Partnership Implementation Update. Director Themick, take it away. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, we'll get geared up here.
While we're doing that, I'd just like to point out to the council that there's an addendum to your packet. Actually, no, this is the different item. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I'm pleased to be here with Leticia Romero from Corazon. She'll be helping the presentation. She'll be doing some translation as we go through, and then she'll be available to answer specific questions. This is intended to be an update on the partnership that the city entered into earlier this summer. So a little bit of background for those who may not be as aware. The city entered into a professional services agreement with Corazon to provide outreach services to our Latino community. Some of the components of that included enhanced communication, working with the city on executing events, and we'll talk about some of the successes that we've had already to date, building relationships, assisting with translation services, and updates to the city council.
Este es acerca de la historia del contrato de Corazon Healdsburg con la ciudad de Healdsburg. Firmó un acuerdo de servicios profesionales que ayudará en mejorar la comunicación, planificar, implementar y ejecutar eventos, continuar construyendo relaciones, ayudar con servicios de traducción y actualizaciones y ayuntamiento.
So the first element in the partnership presentation was just general overview or general outreach and participation. And we've met with Corazon a number of times to put together an implementation plan, and this is really our framework for how we'll move forward. Corazon's charge in that component is to review upcoming city meeting agendas, public hearings, news, events, keep on top of what's happening within the city, help to share that information through various communication channels, and then to reach out to volunteers to participate in various roles when those come up. The lead on that particular segment of work is the public outreach coordinator, but it really involves all the different departments within the city who have services and events that incorporate the Latino population.
En implementar este plan, Corazón Healdsburg ha tenido varias reuniones con los de la ciudad y básicamente es para revisar la agenda de juntas, audiencias públicas, noticias y eventos y mantenernos informados de qué es lo que está pasando en nuestra comunidad y compartir eso por medio de la ciudad, mantener la comunicación abierta y buscar voluntarios también que participarán y el papel que jugarán en cada uno de estos. Primariamente, la ciudad llevará el liderazgo en este asunto, en el alcance para la comunidad y secundariamente serían personales que trabajan en servicios de la comunidad, la policía, vivienda y otras necesidades.
So one of the important elements, and really where this process started, was with our public safety department and some of the challenges that they had in engaging the Latino population for their traditional town halls. So Corazon's role within this is to continue to build a strong relationship between the Latino community and the Healdsburg Police Department. They'll do that in various ways through Know Your Rights workshops, community activities, co-hosting meet and greets with the police department staff. A couple other elements of their work is to really be available when incidents do occur, so people are aware, and Corazon will help communicate any kind of issues and then get feedback from the public as well. One of the very successful events that we actually had two of them this year, was the Platica Latina, one in May and then, or one in, I guess it was March, and then one again this summer. The next one will be scheduled for April or May of 2018. And again, the lead on that is really the police department with support from other departments.
Como se empezó esto fue una junta pública con seguridad, con el departamento de policía y cómo es que podíamos establecer relaciones con la comunidad latina en particular y el departamento de policía. Y el plan es de continuar construyendo una fuerte relación entre ambos. Empezamos también con pláticas de conozca sus derechos, talleres y actividades. Y una de esas fue la plática latina que se continuará haciendo anualmente. La próxima será en abril o mayo del 2018.
The next element of the partnership agreement, or the service agreement, is to really work with the city on community events. And this is where we've actually had some really strong success already this summer. Corazon helped us in 3 events. One was Opera in the Plaza on the 20th of August, and that involved a Spanish opera. The second was our very successful Tuesdays in the Plaza that focused on Latino art and music. It was a great event. There was great integration in the crowd and a lot of energy and excitement. And then the third one was the Art After Dark series that we're partnering with the Healdsburg Center for the Arts, the last one that had a real Latino focus. As we look towards the future, there's one event already confirmed, the date's confirmed, that's Dia de los Muertos on October 29th. We're also considering or looking at the possibility of holding more of a community celebration related to Mexican Independence Day in 2018. We didn't think we could pull that off this year with all the other activities we had planned. And then really the question is kind of what else? What else do we do collectively to engage the community, both the Latino community and our traditional Caucasian community? And then our department, the Community Services Department, is the lead on that with assistance from others.
Este verano ha habido ya mucho éxito en los eventos comunitarios. Esta semana pasada, como ustedes saben, fue ópera en la plaza. El martes 22 de agosto, que fue la música y baile folclórico. Y también Arte por la Noche, que fue un evento muy exitoso también con ambas comunidades, la anglosajona y la latina. Y eventos en el futuro es el Día de los Muertos, que será un evento anual, 29 de octubre. Y se espera que para el año 2018 se celebre el Día de Independencia. Y de nuevo, los encargados serían primariamente los servicios comunitarios por medio de la ciudad y segundo son otros departamentos de la ciudad según sea necesario.
Corazon is also assisting the city on language and translation services by helping identify needs of where information should be translated, and then working with the city to resolve and remove any kind of barriers through translation, as we have tonight, equipment and other sources. One of the things that they also committed to do was to explore the idea of holding an ESL class, English for second language class, and we actually did that this summer. We held 2 different sessions at the community center, 4 nights a week, and both sessions filled. So it was a really good example. I thought what was really interesting is there was a very diverse age representation in those classes, from young individuals to older individuals. So that was a great outreach effort.
Otro de los servicios incluye la idioma y traducción, es identificar la necesidad de servicios de traducción y trabajar con la ciudad para resolver y eliminar los obstáculos que llegan cuando la comunidad latina quiere participar. Otra cosa que se hizo este verano también fue de implementar clases de inglés de segundo idioma y también 4 días a la semana durante el verano, y fue una variedad de personas de diferentes edades que participaron en esas clases.
And the last area is just other services that Corazon is providing under the service agreement. They'll be holding quarterly planning meetings with staff, quarterly updates to City Council, as we talked about. They'll also have access under the agreement to meeting rental space at the community center. There's a formula set forth in there, and legal education and access to legal services for members of our Latino community.
Otros servicios de la implementación incluyen reuniones de planificación cada 3 meses y espacio para rentar reuniones en el centro comunitario también, y educación y acceso a servicios jurídicos.
And that concludes our update.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from up here?
Commend more than anything. I'm really thrilled to hear not only that we're taking steps in an area that I really feel the city has wanted to take steps in, and there's different ways to look at how our past has been, but I know the RUDAT plan alluded to a Latino center and different ways that you could create more cultural events where you can celebrate everybody. And what I really appreciate is our own city council goals back in March brought this very issue up, and here we are realizing it. So I want to commend the city manager for following through, of course, our director of community services, and of course the organization, and just thank you so much. It's steps. It's all about creating a culture to change a culture, and it's wonderful that you're here to tell us what you've been doing, and I appreciate the efforts and the time, and I think that we have a lot more to do. So thank you so much. It's a good beginning.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of echo that. It's one of those where I've personally seen the difference at some of these events, and just I was trying to think of the best way to describe it. It's like you're in a room and you kind of walk around with your head down, then somebody turns on the light and you realize, wow, there's a lot of friends in here. and it's just people that are here, and the events that you've done and the outreach. I've personally noticed the difference, and so I think this is. I appreciate getting the update and the detail, and I look forward to future events. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
If I may, I'd like to share something that is not written on here. You mentioned earlier about racism, that sometimes folks think that it doesn't exist here in Healdsburg, and it does, especially if you're a person of color. It could happen on a daily basis. Small comments like, "Oh, you speak good English," and so working with a city that's really looking to implement some change, I think is really uplifting. On the 22nd of August, it was music on the plaza. It was La Misa Negra, and there was baile folklorico. And I just want to share, what happened and how that day started. There are people that go out to that plaza every Tuesday at about noon time, and they stake their place. And they have all day to sit there and enjoy the sun, the weather, read a book, drink some wine. For others, it's a hard day's work, and being able to come to the plaza at the end of the day is not something that happens every day. We went out there to set up some blankets and have a space so that community members could come and enjoy a potluck meal and, get to meet other folks and so forth. And we were greeted by a woman who was not happy with us placing blankets on the grass. And she said that was her space, that she was there every Tuesday. And our intention was not to create any animosity or, have complaints and so forth. So we just listened to her. And as people continued coming and we put out more blankets and so forth, she was hearing who, was there, who was part of what was taking place. We mentioned that it was Corazon Healdsburg, that we were a nonprofit, and we were expecting other people that normally don't come to the plaza. I would say about 3 or 4 o'clock, she changed her behavior and came up to us and said that she was moving her blankets so that we could have more room to spread out and have people come in. And that's what it's all about. Other comments were, you usually see Latino families looking out on the sidewalk into the plaza. They're not part of it. They're not in the plaza. They're not dancing. They're not drinking. They're not eating. They're not enjoying. They're looking from the outside in. That Tuesday, it was different. And those were the comments that were made. Wow, look at this. This is really a true community where both the Anglo community and the Latino community are enjoying themselves together. I don't live here in Healdsburg. I live in Santa Rosa, but I work here. And so I feel that. And I feel it and I hear it from residents on a daily basis. So being able to have this service agreement come together to not just improve the lives of Latinos, but improve the lives of others as well, and really get to know one another and the richness that each one has to bring. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leticia. Okay, next, item 4C, we have an update on the Arts in Healdsburg Community Conversation. Director Themig again.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I have great support tonight. To my right is Sam Neokas, who came on board this summer as an intern with our department and agreed to take on the task of helping us have a conversation about the arts in Healdsburg. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, and we'll kind of tag team on this. One of the things that I noticed when I came here a couple years ago is that there is this tremendous arts community and there's a lot of interest in it. And there was a question that I had about, what is the city's role in arts? And I learned about the public arts policy and some other efforts and initiatives that the city has taken. But it really was an afternoon in the plaza where I sat down with Diana Jameson, who's the executive director of the Healdsburg Center for the Arts, to talk about the arts and learn more about what it means to Healdsburg. And really we had a conversation about, why should art matter? What is it? And I didn't know a lot about it. And these are some of the things that I've learned since then and that we've learned through this process. First, there's a demonstrated community interest in supporting the arts. That's evident by the various galleries, the Healdsburg Center for the Arts, the public art that we have on our trail system. There was a directive from the city to be engaged in the arts in 2007 that really established the public arts policy. And the arts community has really demonstrated a willingness to form a platform to foster and enhance the arts, with the understanding that the arts is good for people. It adds to quality of life. It adds to economic vitality, all different elements for the arts.
So I'm going to start off here by talking about what happens in other communities around the area. So really the first one is Napa Arts Council, which is pretty famous in the arts circles that exist around here. That really connects artists. It creates funding mechanisms for the arts. It creates a community around them, which is really great to see. The Sebastopol Arts Committee helps fund public arts in Sebastopol through various different measures, and they actually have several sculptures that are going up right now. They're creating the art in Sebastopol. Santa Rosa also has a percent for art measure, what is it called? They spend 1% of any project that's valued over $500,000 budget on supporting the arts in that city. And a lot of other cities have that too around this area. It's not just Santa Rosa, it's not just Sebastopol, it's not just Napa. This happens in cities around California.
So when we started this conversation, we really wanted to take a look at what already exists, what's currently here. And we found a number of things. One, that there's a vibrant community of artists and art of all forms, whether it be musical or ceramics or painting. There's a supportive network of arts from nonprofits and private art benefactors. The Voight Family Foundation is a great example of that really wanted to give back to the community. There's a large community interest in supporting the arts, so people want to support it as well. And then there's activists and thinkers and creators who are really helping to build a healthier arts community in Healdsburg. And these are a few examples on the left-hand side of some of the things that have happened recently. The annual Young Artist Show that occurs at Healdsburg Center for the Arts, our own grind that happened in May at the skate park, and then the Raven Theater obviously does some great performance as well. So as we look more recently, we talked a little bit about the public art policy that the city adopted in 2007. On a regular basis, the city awards community benefit grants to different arts organizations. There's been ongoing informal conversations about the arts among community members. What does it mean? But really what happened in the winter of this year was that we held really a focus group with different arts members, gallery owners, HCA, local artists, to learn more about the arts, some of the past history, and talk about how we move that forward.
In August this year, Mark and I were able to host, in partnership with Healdsburg Center for the Arts, to host a community conversation about the arts. And we actually, was that? No, I think so. There we go. And so this has really got the community together, the arts community. It also got members of the general public together to really talk about the arts and how we can support the arts in our community in all sorts of ways. And we actually were able to compile a list of all the ideas we have that we found there and put it on the city's website. This is all public. You can go and look at all these great ideas that were really created at this community conversation.
What I thought was really interesting about that community conversation is it wasn't just artists who were there. It was people who enjoy art as well as artists themselves. So as we look forward, the next steps, based on the feedback we got from that community conversation, that there's definitely interest in forming essentially an arts think tank to talk about the future of arts and how best to move it forward, made up of artists, benefactors, nonprofits, and the general public. It's not really that defined, but we do have a number of individuals who express interest in participating in that ongoing conversation. So that's really the next steps. There are definitely some leaders in the community who can facilitate that conversation. Healdsburg Center for the Arts, is one that comes to mind, and then there's other individuals who have a vested interest as well. And that concludes our update.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the dais?
Well, not really so much of a question, but just a comment. I think that the arts to me seems like one of those places we talk a lot about the tension with tourism and how, what's the benefit, the benefits versus the drawbacks of tourism in Healdsburg. To me, the arts is one of those places where everybody wins. They're supported by people coming here, and we all participate and we all enjoy the benefits. So I want to point, so much of the conversation can tend towards the negative. And I just want to point out that that's such a wonderful positive that we have, and it's a wonderful characteristic of our community that I'm eager to see what comes of your conversations.
Councilmember Haley?
Just a comment. The Art After Dark was a great event, and one of the things that I really liked was there was a sculpture that the kids were climbing all over, and I don't think my kids stayed on that thing pretty much the entire night, either that or painting. And I think I like the fact that those kind of events are not forgetting the kids, because that way it becomes a family-friendly event. Even things that you think would be, that's for the grown-up eye or whatever, that my kids notice the horse, the round ball thing that used to be out here. I don't know where that went. I hope it's coming back. But they do notice that stuff, and so I did want to kind of point that out, that I really appreciated the fact that there were things for the kids to do, and not just to stand and look at, but to climb all over so they become part of the art.
City Manager or
I just wanted to ask, so do you, Director, do you see this as a shift in our understanding of what we need to do in terms of our arts, the connection to arts in our community? Like, I just want to know, what do you see overall is changing in terms of the city of Healdsburg's response to promoting and creating ways for art to be supported? Is there something that you could say that would be specific about that?
So, Mayor, members of council, I think that the arts community they're looking for a way to connect. There's different segments of the arts community. You have your commercial galleries, you have your nonprofits, and they're really looking for a way to come together as one. There was a point in time when there was an arts council here, and that dissolved into different organizations, and maybe that's the approach that comes back. There'll be a need for leadership from the community, from the arts community, to reform that. So I think that that's part of the conversation that needs to happen when these stakeholders essentially get together and say, how do we move this forward in Healdsburg?
Yeah, I think that's actually a lot of what I've been seeing as well. At least, some changes at the board level, at the Healdsburg Center for the Arts, more of a focus on reaching out and fundraising more and kind of having a larger presence in the community, I think, is kind of a groundswell that I see happening. And I just wanted to ask the city manager if there's anything that, any next steps that we could do.
I think just continuing to have community services work with that community, and I think they really need that community really needs the one to be the one to form themselves. I think the city can act as a facilitator, if that makes sense. But I think the impetus of that has to come from the arts community, and I think Mark and staff have done a good job of starting that dialogue. But I think from that perspective, I think that dialogue needs to happen to bring that leadership along. I think would be a good next step. If you're asking for what the solid next agenda item is, what I would do is I would actually go back to the community services and work with Mark to bring that community along, and maybe have another update in another couple of months to see what's transpired since then.
Yeah, that sounds good. I know that I've been in touch with a lot of the folks on various boards and stuff in arts organizations, and I'm hearing that there's definitely more of a push to get the arts to be more prominent, like some of the other communities that Mr. Uniokas mentioned. So I think you'll find, if the art community, if you're out there listening, I think you're going to find a lot of support up here, and just keep it keep it going, and at the right time, come back to us, and I'm sure we'll be receptive to any kind of proposals. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I want to thank Sam for his work this summer. He really was an asset to help move this conversation forward. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks, Sam. Okay, next we'll move on to item 5, public comments on non-agenda items. This time is set aside to receive comments from the public regarding matters of general interest that are not on the agenda but related to City Council business. Pursuant to the Brown Act, however, the City Council cannot consider any issues or take any action or requests during the comment period. Speakers are encouraged to limit their comments to 3 minutes maximum so that everybody has a chance to speak. Bruce, welcome.
Bruce Abramson, Healdsburg. So in my quick 3 minutes here, I'm going to talk about a proposal to limit hotel growth in the downtown. And I'm going to talk a little about St. Helena and Carmel and what they've done for hotel limitations. So basically, I believe the town, I have to read sort of quickly in this phase here. So I believe the town needs balance between the needs of residents and those of the tourists. Many residents believe there is an overconcentration of hotels downtown. The downtown commercial district currently has 8 hotels for a total of 181 tourist rooms. This includes 2 hotels on the plaza, which are 67 rooms, and 2 hotels which are 100 yards from the plaza, H2 and H3, with a total of 75 rooms. We do not need, in my opinion, another hotel across from H3, which would make 3 hotels on one block. It's called overconcentration. An ad hoc group is proposing to the City Council that it restrict any future hotel growth in the plaza and the downtown commercial districts. This is a 4-block by 3-block area, Piper to Mill and east to Vine. Preserving this area for existing uses or similar retail and business uses would help keep our small town character for both residents and visitors. So currently, what do we have? Current zoning allows a permitted use for hotels in both districts. Now, very few, if any, cities that I've noticed in California allow a permitted use for hotels in the commercial district. They usually have other various ways to look at that. Presently, any size hotel, as long as it has on-site parking and has a 50-foot height limitation, would be allowed. To eliminate the permitted use for these 2 districts, the City Council would need to approve a change in our land use code by majority vote. It's a relatively simple procedure. The change would not affect hotel applications in other parts of town. There are many reasons to support this proposal. I believe we need to have a value and visions approach to what we want our downtown to be now and in the future. Our downtown should not be viewed as only some commodity with supply and demand and so-called best use being the only metrics. There's a qualitative side. It's a sense of place that is paramount. Both residents and tourists enjoy the sense of a real town where the scale is small and there's a range of shops and businesses that serve everyone. Residents should be aware that there are over 350 hotel rooms approved and under construction. But this will double the number of hotel rooms. Now, Carmel and St. Helena, 2 similar tourist-based towns have dealt with this issue. St. Helena has a cap on the number of hotel rooms as well as Carmel. Both cities realized that they were losing control of their downtowns to insatiable hotel growth. They took the steps necessary to try and find balance in their commercial districts.
Bruce, could you wrap it up, please?
Okay, we should learn from what they implemented so as to maintain our sense of place and quality of life. In closing, I request your support for this proposal.
Thank you, Bruce.
Bruce, can we get a copy of that?
Gail, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I have 4 things to say in 3 minutes. Wish me luck. Number 1, I want to thank you, Mayor McCaffrey, for suggesting that the agendize the shelter for the homeless this winter. Harvey Brody and I have made a commitment to get them under some kind of shelter this winter during the bad weather. And we are having a forum for the residents and the homeless on September 23rd at the library between 10 and noon to bring support for this and find out what the possibilities are. On the tourism issue, I've been involved in this since the November 8th election, forming a research group, and my opinion is that we need more data, not only from the residents about how they feel about it, an unbiased survey, and we also need to know more about the tourists who are returning here, some of whom are saying it doesn't feel the same anymore. And I know that there are owners of bed and breakfast that would support having a postcard for them, sending them out and saying, what was your experience like? And so I do believe that as we face this in a sustainable tourism study, we ought to be looking at getting more unbiased data that we all can use so that we can talk together. I've been talking with Bruce about his proposal. There's another proposal, I believe, that City Council member Nuyukas proposed about conditional use permits all around the city. We need to start talking with each other and hearing each other, the pros and cons of all these things. I find I wobble back and forth depending on, what I hear most recently, but I know that there are answers to these if we all work together. The next thing is our prune pits, which is city. That's our name for our senior co-ed baseball team. With the strong support of Parks and Rec and with the senior center, we'll have our first practice tomorrow. You can come with your hip replacement, your bad elbow or shoulder, and play, and you should have fun. The last thing is I support the public funding of our community arts. And again, thanks to Parks and Rec for doing that. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Welcome, Kathy.
Hi, my name is Kathy Birdsong, and I'm a member of the Parks and Rec Commission. And I just wanted to continue what Mark had started by assuring you that the Parks and Rec Commission has already established an arts subcommittee. There are three of us. It's Juan Mota, Ron Dobley, and me. And we have seen already that the policy that the city has is very businesslike, and steps to take and safety measures and all this. And what's missing, in my humble opinion, is the aesthetics of public art. This is something that we, as an art community, need to establish, and I want you to know that we are on the way. Also, on a personal request, we have a beautiful park in the middle of town called Plaza Park. I have this thing about calling it the Plaza instead of the square. I'm sorry about that, Bridget. But I think we ought to maintain that tradition because it is the Plaza. And it's, I think, for some reason, people thought, it would be confused with Sonoma or the shopping center in Santa Rosa. No, we were here first. So it's the Plaza. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Warren, welcome.
Hello, Warren Watkins, 418 Matheson. Briefly, I am here tonight representing the Sustainable Tourism Group. It's a task force within the Healdsburg Coalition. Our task force comments tonight together constitute a request to put just a 4-minute sustainable tourism forum video created by Ashley Edmonds, a local high school student. We request that you put that on the next council agenda and to conduct a work study session on tourism planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert, welcome.
And to clarify a little bit, there might be some confusion based on how I heard you discussing the movie issue. We're not proposing a movie with a little bit of a discussion. What we are proposing is an agenda item, a working agenda item, possibly done as part of a work study session, maybe a separate meeting, a substantial agenda item where the city council considers the various issues, the various problems and questions raised regarding sustainable tourism. Some of my colleagues here will suggest ideas that we would like you to consider as part of that agenda item. And the movie would just be a small part of that and not an absolutely essential part, though it's a splendid movie. It's very short. It's a little thing that shares the, is based on the Sustainable Tourism Forum that hundreds of citizens showed up at, participated in, raised lots of questions. It's an opportunity to share that with you and to let the citizens raise those questions in a splendid and effective way. But the central issue is not the movie. The central issue is we want to start moving forward. The community is behind measures that work to balance tourism with community needs. The community voted to preserve small town character in their opposition to Measure R. They voted for a 2% tourism tax to fund affordable housing with Measure S. They elected Leah Gold, a strong supporter of preserving Healdsburg's small town character by a wide margin. Volunteers organized and staffed a sustainable tourism forum event that attracted a standing room only crowd with diverse opinions. The forum crowd submitted hundreds of written comments, with the overwhelming majority indicating tourism is impacting livability, housing costs, commercial rents, neighborhoods, and social and economic diversity. And the City Council and the Healdsburg Planning Commission policies that they have, City Planning Commission have adopted policies that acknowledge the need to manage tourism. The City Council enacted a tasting room regulation ordinance. The Planning Commission denied a project that would have opened the door to evasion of the ban on vacation rentals in neighborhoods. The applicant had wanted a residence with a granny unit to become a vacation rental. The council is planning to create a tourism study. Now we are requesting that the council move forward on this issue promptly and comprehensively. Thank you.
Thank you. Marilyn, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. I'm Marilyn Joyce, and I'm a Healdsburg resident. And I'm part of this sustainable tourism group. Now, before it's too late for Healdsburg, is the time for comprehensive planning. The Sustainable Tourism Forum, held at the end of May, collected comments in the form of sticky notes from well over 100 participants on issues, as Robert said, like neighborhoods, hotels, tasting rooms, housing, and traffic. The overwhelming sentiment expressed by those community participants was Healdsburg tourism has reached a tipping point. We need solutions before it's too late. We are worried that decisions about tourism, such as renewal of the Healdsburg Tourism Improvement District funding and approval of the Replay Resort Hotel and Condo project, will be made before the issue of the sustainability of tourism is adequately examined. Also, there's the potential hotel proposal on or near the plaza. Besides the impact on the soul of Healdsburg, a plaza that is for all of us, including our Latino community who are inside the plaza rather than outside the plaza, plus traffic, etc., the community would also lose 4 well-loved local businesses. And according to our research, approved projects under construction or in the pipeline will bring 400 additional lodging rooms to downtown. Balance between residents and visitors is already a general plan goal. We need to realize that pipeline development has already impacted that goal of balance. The planned tourism study needs to be paired with a moratorium on new tourism development. Otherwise, the benefit of planning will be lost. Thanks for considering our request.
Thank you. Todd.
Good evening. I'm Todd Everett. And I urge you to schedule a discussion workshop, as previous speakers have indicated, on planning for the town's future for one of your soon city council meetings. And in 2009, the city adopted the 2030 general plan. In 2013, as you so well know, you were vice chair of this committee, the group that did the Pathway to Sustainability 2014-2019, set forth goals and action plans and annual updates. However, there's a big however, neither of these documents is adequate for addressing the issues that currently confront our town. They don't provide you with the level of specificity. They don't go deep enough to be able to provide guidance. And that's why it's so imperative with the pace of tourism, the impacts of climate change, the acceleration of gentrification, that we need a fresh approach to finding creative solutions. A piecemeal approach, solving the problems of parking, looking at affordable housing, looking at economic diversification, will not allow our town to achieve its potential. We will solve them partially, but there'll be second-order effects that will come back to diminish the quality of life for people here. And the path we're currently on most likely will lead to divisiveness and polarization, something that we're trying to get away from. We had some experience with that last year. We really need to bring our community together, how we can move forward to create a high quality of life for all of our residents while protecting our environment and meeting the needs of stakeholders such as investors, employers, workers, and those living in the surrounding area. We need a meaningful, broad-based community sustainability planning process that's based on solid research on what is happening and what is likely to happen in Healdsburg in the next 10 to 15 years. So an expanded study of the impacts of tourism, like the RFP that's just gone out, which one of my colleagues is going to talk about, is really an important first step, but it's not the answer. You should ask staff to explore and report back to you on other organizations that might guide us through the right kind of community sustainability planning process. How do we go about creating connections in our community? How do we build on our town strengths like the arts that we heard about today? How do we forge a consensus on what we want to be the essence of our town in the future? So I do recommend that city staff investigate the American Institute of Architects' Sustainable Development Assessment Team. It's called SDAT, and it grew out of RUDAT and was created in 2005. It has.
Todd, could you wrap it up,
Yep.
please?
That's about it. That's I think why you're here, for your leadership. So please, by all means, schedule a workshop discussion so you can get some really good input from all of us.
Thanks, Todd. Oh, thank you. Welcome, Janice.
Hi, Janice Watkins. My first time at our new audio setup. It sounds pretty good. I'm a Healdsburg resident, and I'm also a member of the Sustainable Tourism Task Force of the Healdsburg Coalition. The city has requested bids to conduct a sustainable tourism study. I'm going to talk about how the city's request is inadequate. The city's request is narrowly focused on gathering data to convince the community of the economic benefits of tourism. Also, it apparently seeks data to brand Healdsburg as a sustainable tourism destination. See the reference on page 4 to Global Sustainable Tourism Council criteria. That's not what the community is looking for in a sustainable tourism study. We need a citizen advisory committee to help with the request. No one disputes that Healdsburg's ascent to a renowned wine and food destination is an amazing success story. The community acknowledges tourism brings increased tax revenues and jobs in hospitality and is a valued and essential component of our local economy. The issue is, what different ways could growth occur? One suggestion being the arts tonight. The community has repeatedly demonstrated it wants balance and economic diversity. As the previous speaker stated, the search for balance and diversity should be the subject of a broad-based community planning effort and should not be an effort to sell the community on more tourism growth. That's the big picture. I'll mention just a few more narrow critiques of the city's request as time allows. The city's request calls for a phase 1 focus on economic data. The residents' quote, attitudes toward tourism, close quote, are relegated to a potential phase 2. This is exactly backward. Listening to residents about their livability and sustainability concerns should be first priority. The request's objectives should include the community's stake in small town livability and social and economic diversity. Where in this document is the community's concern for our Latino and lower income communities? The request calls for a baseline of data. An accurate baseline would include the 400 already approved lodging rooms so the community can understand where we really are in terms of livability and sustainability concerns. What is the ratio, the current ratio of tourist lodging rooms to resident population? What will the ratio be when we add 400 additional rooms? How do our ratios compare to other tourist towns? We need this information.
Janice, I have to ask you to wrap it.
Okay.
But thank you for the.
Yeah.
Thank you for
All
the.
right, and you can just read the last point.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Gina, welcome.
My name's Gina Reiner. I live on Grant Street, and I'm the event producer for Art After Dark. And I have lived a few places in the world, traveled a few places, and I've never quite experienced what I experienced on August 25th, working with the city of Healdsburg and Corazon Healdsburg. It was I know this may sound weird, but it was a blessed event, and there was so much happiness. It was such an integrated community building night, and I wanted to reaffirm how important it is for the city of Healdsburg to participate officially in programs like this. And I also want to make a comment about an activity we had there. We had 7 vintage Impala cars from the North Bay Impala Car Club. And I heard a comment that they were surprised there was no police presence, that it was just a community family event. And that really struck me as an Anglo person. I think that, I'm not racist, I'm not prejudiced, but I didn't ever put myself in their shoes before like that, where families would be relieved that there wasn't a police presence there. This is a small event on a small section of Plaza Street between Center and East. So it was just very joyful night, and it was a pleasure to work with Corazon Healdsburg. We had a lot of simpatico with Leticia and Ari Rosen and my volunteer, Chris Herrera. And I just encourage all of you to not miss the next one. Only one of you has an excuse for missing September 22nd, but the other 4 of you don't. So I just wanted to publicly thank you and keep on supporting these programs.
Thank you, Gina. Welcome, Rosie.
Rosie Fabian, Sherman Street. Hello, Mayor McCaffrey and council and city employees. I'm here to commend Maya DeRosa, our interim planning director, on the Design Healdsburg event that happened last week. I was disappointed by the attendance because they put a lot of effort out and did an amazing job with the displays and all the information there. Everybody that I spoke to was very patient with all my questions, and they gave me materials to go home with. They were very generous with their time and their materials, so I just wanted to go ahead and commend them and strongly suggest that she become our permanent planning director because she's done an amazing job. In fact, she's sitting there working in her seat right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome, Tim.
Tim Unger, Plaza Street. On the 21st of August, I made a request for cost data relative to parking consulting that's been incurred since 2008, and of those monies, how much of that has been directed towards Walker in 2014, 2017, or any other dates that I might not be aware of. The response at that time was that the city manager didn't have those numbers with him. I'm hoping that those numbers are available today. I'd also encourage that when there are presentations such as this kind of information be volunteered on the front end in the spirit and body of transparency. I grew up in a small town in Maine with about 3,500 people. And ever since I can remember, going back to the 50s, there was paid parking. The population in that town is still 3,500 people. There's nothing urban about paid parking. What I find urban in Healdsburg is $800 a night hotel rooms. I'd like to take my hat off to Councilperson Hagley for his forward and thoughtful, insightful thinking and pursuing proactively affordable housing financing in a creative way. I think often city governments are far too reactive instead of proactive. I think this is a step in the right direction. I'd also like to commend Bruce Abramson and the Sustainable Tourism Collective for their comments tonight. And I'd like to encourage something be done about the Wi-Fi signal in this room during city council meetings. Right now, the up speed's 2 and the down speed's 1.8. And I think that would help a lot of people out in the audience access electronic documents for the purposes of participating in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing nobody else, I will close the public comment and move on to the consent calendar. And now we have item E. We're going to talk about that separately. So at this point, if there's no questions or anything, I'll take a motion to approve the consent calendar without item E.
I'll move that.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gold?
Yes.
Councilmember Tagley?
Yes.
Councilmember Mayorkas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mansell? Yes. Mayor McCaffrey?
Yes. Okay, now item 6E.
I
Vice Mayor
have
Mansell?
been told, since I live on the street in which this work is going to take place, that I need to recuse myself. Although I do not feel there is any financial gain in my particular property, I am going to leave to err on the sake of legal matters.
It is your decision whether to recuse yourself. It is not mine.
Very good of you. Thank you.
I'll run.
Director Salmi, can you give us lowdown on item E?
This is a project that's probably about 2 years old at this point. The residents have long complained about drainage coming off the golf course or off of Taman Park through their yards. They came to the council back in, I think, about April of 2016. And the council directed staff to move forward with design of a project to alleviate the drainage off the golf course through those yards. And so what this is the award of a construction contract to handle that project.
I have a couple questions. First of all, this was a two-phase project, right? And this is just the first part, if I remember correctly?
It'll probably be a 3-phase project. But yes, this is the first phase. This takes care of the surface flows that are crossing the property line and going into the individual yards.
So this will direct the surface flows to where they can be mitigated?
Picked up and brought into a public storm drain, yes.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Councilmember Mayorkas?
Right. So I think my I'd like you to address the what the. I guess my concern is what is the difference between a project like this where we have our city property affecting other residential properties versus are we exposing ourselves to any sort of risk of setting a precedent of trying to mitigate a situation that may or may not have been within our control? Right? I mean, I guess I'm looking at Taman Park, and I think I understand what you're saying, that there is actual outflow that's the result of human improvements to the Taman Park, right? And if I guess I'm concerned about where do we draw the line about our responsibilities to mitigating impacts of properties like Taman or even other properties that might not be.
I'm interpreting your question to mean if the properties, if there was open space or undeveloped parkland behind these houses, then in that case, it's a natural occurring flow, and that the houses or the properties on the downstream would have the responsibility under state drainage law to basically convey that through their properties. In the case of Taman Park, it's actually developed land. It's developed as a golf course, but it is developed land, and so it's slightly different. Also, from older records, it appears that there was some efforts done many years ago to collect the water before it crossed the property lines. There have been prior improvements on the golf course that were done by the city to collect and convey water. So this is really just probably getting back to status quo in some respects.
Okay, so I guess the flip side of that would be where do we stop? To what degree do you feel confident that this will address those water flow issues?
Well, there'll always be some amount of water crossing the property line. But we will make a decided difference in the amount that it does. The amount that will cross the property line will be easily managed by the downstream property owners. But like I said, the majority of water will be conveyed to a public drainage system.
Gotcha. So you're basically saying, look, we've analyzed the water flow. We're going to dig this ditch that's going to be sufficiently large enough to convey the water away from that would cause a problem.
Essentially, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for action.
Well, I move that we accept this consent calendar item.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
So just for the record, this is the adoption of the resolution awarding the bid for the Portnorn Lane drainage improvements. Correct?
Correct.
Councilmember Gold?
Yes.
Councilmember Hagley?
Yes.
Councilmember Leokis?
Yes.
Mayor McCaffrey?
Yes. That's approved. So, Chief Boaz, could you ask Vice Mayor Mansell to come back in? Oh, she heard us. I waved. Oh. Okay, moving on to item 7, we have no public hearings, so we'll move on to old business. Item 8A, the redevelopment successor agency refunding of the 2010 tax allocation bonds. City Manager McCallion, or Assistant City Manager Hypolite.
Good evening, Mayor McCaffrey, Vice Mayor Mansell, and fellow council members. Heather Hypolite, Assistant City Manager. Before you tonight is a resolution authorizing the issuance of refunding bonds and approving the forms of documents in connection with and authorize the filing of the resolution and plan of refunding and savings analysis with the appropriate parties. The existing bond was originally a $21 million bond with the redevelopment agency. It was the 2010 tax allocation bonds. The amount remaining is a little over $19 million. Final maturity is August 1, 2034. Essentially what we're proposing is to refinance these bonds to save interest. The issuance amount will come to about almost 18,000, almost 18 million, 17,870,000 for an average interest rate of 3.42 with essentially a net present value savings of a little over 2,163,000 per year. Any savings will be split with the other 13 taxing agencies. For example, the county library, Healdsburg Unified School District, and the water agency. The city's percentage in that savings is about 24%. The cost of issuance were taken into consideration with the calculation of that savings. On September 6th, the Oversight Board, comprised of representatives from the taxing agencies, will meet to consider a similar resolution. Next steps: tomorrow, approval of the bond documents by the Oversight Board. Early September, documentation is forwarded to the County Administrative Office, County Auditor Controller, and the State Department of Finance for review and approval. Department of Finance has 5 days to confirm its review and 60 days to consider the Oversight Board's actions. In early October, we'll bring the official statement to the successor agency, this board, for approval, with the transaction closing late November, early December. It all depends on our response from the Department of Finance. And that essentially concludes staff's report.
Any questions from council? Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back for action.
I offer the motion that we adopt resolution authorizing the issuance of refunding bonds and approving the forms of documents in connection therewith, and authorizing the filing of the resolution and plan of refunding and savings analysis with the appropriate parties.
I'll second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Mayor Chair McCaffrey, I'd like to know for the record that this action is being taken as the redevelopment successor agency.
Yes, this action is being taken as the redevelopment successor agency of the city of Healdsburg.
Board Member Gold.
Yes.
Board Member Higley.
Yes.
Board Member Naokis.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Mansell. Chairperson McCaffrey.
Yes. Thank you. Is there another action item on this one? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to new business. Item 9A, request for Corazon Healdsburg and the city to enter a lease agreement for the use of space at the Healdsburg Community Center. Director Themig, you're a popular guy today.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Tonight's action is to adopt a resolution approving a lease agreement with Corazon Healdsburg for facility space at the community center with the value of services provided credited toward the lease costs and authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement. The community center has 5 portable classrooms that have typically been leased by different agencies over time. The city is currently using classroom number 12 for office space during reconstruction at City Hall. Number 13 is vacant. It became vacant when the CAP agency's Youth Connection program consolidated in Santa Rosa, Access Healdsburg uses 14, and Alliance Medical Center uses 15 and 16 for their teen clinic, and they just renewed their lease recently. CoreZone's request is to create essentially a one-stop family resource center that would be housed at the community center. They would move their offices, which are currently located on Center Street, and they would coordinate their programs and services from a central location. You might recall our presentation earlier. There's a portion of the current professional services agreement that gives them access to facility space at the community center for some of the programs that they're providing as part of the agreement. And other programs. And so this would essentially create a one-stop location for the Latino community to participate in programs, but also to receive other services that CoreZone provides. In exchange for using the space, they're requesting that they receive credit towards their lease payments for a number of services that are really benefiting our services that we currently provide. They're proposing to do quarterly parenting education seminars. One of the things that we heard in talking with staff about some of the challenges, parenting skills are a challenge that we've seen, and so they're proposing to bring that to the table as part of the services they do. Weekly tutoring. Our after-school staff do a great job of tutoring, but they're limited because they're working with some 20 to 25 kids in the after-school classroom. So CoreZone has agreed to step up to the plate and provide tutoring for after-school programs. CoreZone would also help us to recruit and participate in physical education and youth sports activities for both youth and adults. Quarterly teen programming opportunities. That's one of the areas we're interested in reaching further into. We don't do a lot of teen programming. We've started to do some, and CoreZone has expressed an interest in helping us with that. Tax preparation. We do tax preparation for our older adult community at the senior center. This would provide that service for our Latino population. Healthy eating and food security programming. That's one of the challenges that occurs in the Latino community. And then lastly, building on our arts initiative, working with both parent and children in an arts effort. This request is similar to our arrangement with Access Healdsburg. The financial side of it, the lease costs for a year, including all the utilities and common costs, are about $16,209. The value of proposed services totals just over $16,400. There would be some coordination requirements. They would have to meet with us biannually to talk about their services, and they'd also have to report their progress in meeting their requirements. We would have an ongoing evaluation of their services, so if needs changed, we could talk about those needs and how they changed and how best we can meet those needs. And then lastly, other services could be provided by CoreZone as part of this. Any services they do above and beyond what they're proposing in this agreement would be considered a donation to the city. So as I mentioned, requested action is to adopt a resolution approving the lease agreement this evening and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement. And I believe that Ari Rosen is here from CoreZone if you have any specific questions from them as well.
Any questions from council?
If I could add, I jumped the gun a little bit earlier. This is the document that you have before you on the dais. You have the lease and all of the exhibits.
Thank you. Any questions on this one? Does the public have any questions or comments? Ari, welcome.
Thanks. My name is Ari Rosen. I'm with CoreZone. I just wanted to let the council know that we've gone international. Ariel Kelly is streaming the meeting right now in Munich, Germany, and is sending me updates via text. So she's watching us right now. So hi, Ariel Kelly, who's the chair of our board of CoreZone. Congratulations on going international. I just want to thank the city of Healdsburg, especially Mark Themig and Parks and Rec for the work that we've already done in collaboration, CoreZone and the city. And as far as the sort of direction that we want to move in this city, it's a natural progression for us to move to what we see as the other heart of the city, which is the community center, and continue to fortify the efforts that the city's already doing there, and continue to sort of bridge the language barrier and ease the socioeconomic gap that we feel in the different stratas of community here. And the community center really provides us that fertile soil to do that work. So I hope you consider us for this office space. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'll bring it back, and I just had a quick comment for Ariel. It's probably 3 or 4 in the morning in Germany. I'm impressed. Vice Mayor Mansell?
I cannot think of a more important time for us. I mean, we've been funding our Chamber of Commerce and certainly looking at how we're going to do that in the future. I think that this organization has demonstrated that this is a really amazing opportunity for us as a city to shift things and put things in perspective as far as our people that live here and work here and keep the economy, as well as just we love our community and we want to make sure that everybody is getting what they need. And I think politically speaking, it's a really important time for this town to step up and help with certain services that are going to be even more needed, perhaps. So I just can't think of a better way to support our community than this. And I just really appreciate the work that's been done. And I think that a physical space is absolutely essential. And I remember that in the city council goal session, I wrote, collaborate with Corazon and other organizations to make our community center a focal point for all our families. And I really love that you mentioned it as another place for us to be together as a community, another heart, if you will, for our community. And I just want to also say that as we look at spending money, to me, this is very good spending of money because it suggests, again, that we're valuing people and we're also looking forward at the baby steps we're taking. I think we have a lot more work to do, and I'm really happy that we're starting here. So thank you so much, everybody, for making this happen.
Thank you. With that, Councilmember Gold?
Yeah, well, I just want to mention that in addition to our own observations, we've heard so much testimony in these chambers about the good that Corazon does and the value that they add to the community. And I'm personally amazed that they've been able to do that out of their tiny, tiny office, which is like 2 minute rooms. So if this lease agreement enables them to expand the services they offer and to do even more benefit for our community, then I think it's a tremendous win-win situation.
Great. Would somebody like to offer a resolution?
Actually, I'd like to make one additional comment, if you will. I want to commend the staff and Corazon for being so creative. I mean, I think in working out this agreement, you mentioned use of funds, but actually there aren't any funds being expended. There's no staff. There's no PERS impact. There's no impact to our. There's no real direct impact to our general fund or any of our funds. So I love creative solutions like this where we can take city assets and leverage them with the community's help, and so we're kind of like magnifying each other's assets. So I love it. I think it's and again I want to commend both organizations for the efforts. That's all. And with that, I so move to adopt the resolution approving the lease agreement with Corazon Healdsburg for use of the facility space at the Healdsburg Community Center, with the value of services provided credited toward the lease cost, and authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gold?
Yes.
Councilmember Hagley?
Yes.
Councilmember Nayokas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mansell? Yes. Mayor McCaffrey?
Yes. And with that, we have some written communications from Director DeRosa. Oh, sorry.
One more item.
I apologize. Item 9B, expedited permitting process for electric vehicle charging systems. City Manager McKinley, Director DeRosa.
Maya's actually going to run the PowerPoint for me this evening. Good evening, Mayor McCaffrey and council members. My name is Steve Buffenbarger. I'm the building official for the city of Healdsburg. Tonight, staff is requesting your consideration in adopting an ordinance and expediting permitting process for electrical vehicle charging stations. The recommended action is to introduce for the first reading by title only an ordinance amending Healdsburg Municipal Code Title 15 by adding Chapter 15.9, expediting permitting process for electrical vehicle charging systems in order to comply with the specific requirements of Assembly Bill 1236 to expedite the permitting process for electrical vehicle charging systems. A little background on Assembly Bill 1236. It's a state of California mandate that cities such as Healdsburg are required to adopt an ordinance and honor before September 30th, 2017. The mandate also is that the city adopt a checklist of all requirements with which electrical vehicle charging systems shall comply to be eligible for expedited review. If an applicant satisfies the information requirement in the checklist as determined by the city, it will be determined complete. The checklists and permitting documents must be published on the city's webpage. When available, allowance for electronic submittals of permit applications and associated documentation, and allowance for electronic signatures in all forms. In order to further simplify the permitting application process, the city has developed 3 different EVCS checklists that are categorized by use. We are continuing to revise and update these checklists. First one is for single-family dwellings. Another one is for multi-unit residential dwellings. And then the third checklist is for non-residential dwellings. That final line on this slide really talks to something that the Building Standard Commission always requires, is that the city, if they are going to make it more restrictive, they can never make anything less restrictive, but they can make it more restrictive. But in this case, it's an administrative provision, and we will not have to make any express findings to the Building Standard Commission that this is not more restrictive. Again, the staff recommended action is that that this is an introduction for the first reading by title only, an ordinance amending Healdsburg Municipal Code, Title 15 by adding Chapter 15.19, expedited permitting process for electronic vehicle or electric vehicle charging systems in order to comply with the specific requirements of AB 1236 to expedite the permitting process of electrical vehicle charging systems. And that concludes my presentation, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councilman Mariocas?
Hi, thank you for the report. So cities below under 200,000 citizens are all essentially going through the same process that we are.
Yes, county, or the county of Sonoma is the only one over the 200,000, and they had to have this done by 2016's September 30th, so they've already complied.
Okay. And to what extent, how would our amendment compare to those of other cities in our same kind of profile?
We've gone through what's called the CALBO, California Building Officials Association, which will take these Senate bills and help each city or any jurisdiction to do a kind of a template for ordinances and adoption, and try to make it more uniform. And so we've done it both through the Redwood Empire chapter of the building officials, which is Lake County to Marin. All of us have gotten together, and also the utilities districts, and Healdsburg Utility has also helped to try to standardize these forms. They're still all going to be different, but the process is all the same.
Gotcha. So any examples of how ours is different from, say, Sonoma, or?
I don't know offhand.
Okay.
It's not going to be significantly
Right.
different.
Right. Okay. Okay.
We're going to try to make it more simple, though, is really what we want.
Right.
So we can expedite it, because
That's the point.
Makes things go faster.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions? Anyone from the public have any questions or comments on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back for discussion and or action.
I'd offer the motion to introduce for first reading by title only an ordinance amending Healdsburg Municipal Code Title 15 by adding Chapter 15.19 expedited permitting process for electric vehicle charging systems in order to comply with specific requirements of AB 1236 to expedite the permitting process for electric vehicle charging systems.
I have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gold?
Yes.
Councilmember Higley?
Yes.
Councilmember Nayokas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mansell? Mayor McCaffrey?
Yes. And with that, now we have item 10, written communications. Be sure to check those out from Planning Director DeRosa. We have no closed sessions, and therefore the meeting is adjourned.